Alrighty, let's do this. Welcome back to the Mania 7 Key World Cup 2025. I'm really excited to be back here for the final part of this quarterfinals weekend. We've had all of the matches. We've whittled it down to the top 12 teams for the semifinals, and all we've got to do now is showcase the Semifinals map pool for those 12 teams to duke it out against each other on next weekend. I'm Toph Daddy, one of your commentators for this showcase, joined by one of our map selectors, Tails DK. How's it going?
Hello everyone, excited this weekend. Once again, we have a new map pool, and it is the semifinals map pool, so the difficulty is going to go up once again, actually by quite a bit.
Oh, it's going up alright. It's I've played through this, and I mean, I know I'm not a 7 main. I know I'm not that good at it, but I was actually able to like S-rank a couple maps last week. I got 1 A rank on the semifinals map pool. 1.
Yeah, so very exciting. But I think we'll just get right into it, right?
Yeah, not much left to say. We could start off with the beginning of the map pool, starting off the same way we always have with our first rice pick, Rice 1, and just like the last rounds, this is going to be our speed pick. This is Umami Blaze by A Question, a map by PWHK, and this is brutal. The speed maps that we've been having for the previous rounds have been fast and could be difficult to get accuracy on, but this map in particular is really mean with the patterning and plays very similarly to what you would call a delay map in BMS or other 7 key rhythm games.
Yeah, you see it here in the intro, just super fast, very brutal streams. I think this is definitely a contender to be the ban map of the round. I think this is definitely the hardest one. Yeah, the band map of the rice pick, anyways.
Yeah, I think that's actually fair. Even looking at some of the more complex maps later on in the rice pool, like the tech pick and the mixed rice, I think those are still probably more straightforward than this, which is ridiculous to say.
Yeah, this one is just super difficult. I'm gonna get into these streams, they're so fast. We're at 336 BPM, so just really
a bit
fast.
of a jump. A little bit of a jump.
Yeah.
But take a look at something important to like take a look at. Previous maps in this category have been like OD like 8-ish for the most part. This one, OD 7.2, still the hardest one to get accuracy on so far. And I mean that's just the patterning doing it to you, you know. We saw it in most of the speed picks that we have had so far that most of the patterns are kind of like connected to each other in a way, where this one kind of has splits and changes in direction that happen all the time. It's almost like there's doubles that are paired together, and those you have to play kind of as one, and just everything kind of throws you off for what you'd normally expect a speed map to entail.
Yeah. But without further ado, let's get into our next pick. This is our Rice 2. This is Little Star full version by Red Alice featuring Ayumi Nomiya. This is a map by me, and this is our dense code stream map. Yeah, this map is not too much faster than last round, only a 5 BPM increase, but it is 3 minutes and 19 seconds, so a lot of the difficulty is just gonna come in it being way longer.
Yeah, I think also important to note is that a good portion of this map is pretty significantly denser than what we saw from Rice 2 last round. Like, you'll see in the choruses in particular, those patterns are a little bit more difficult. You still have these like small verses with mostly double streaming, but the choruses hit you with a lot of brackets and a lot of just full-on density, and I think that's going to be paired with the extra length to destroy your stamina here.
Yeah, this one is really living up to the name here, just being full density code stream. There are quite a few breaks throughout. You see these like little breaks here and there, so you do get a little bit of a break, but you know, that might ruin your focus a little bit. And
definitely could. I can see that happening. You can see those transitions just ridiculously high density. And I'm used to the short version of this song, so normally I would expect to go directly into the solo there, but you still got a little bit more of a verse to get through and more choruses. But that verse comes with a break here. Not too long of one, but you get a little bit of a reprieve after trying to get through the super high density of that first chorus.
Yeah, definitely. This break is like definitely one of the main ones. I wanna say this is definitely where you're supposed to like say, "Oof, we made it through the first half. Get ready for the second half." Here we go.
And this density actually even higher than what we saw in that first chorus. We actually saw like a little bit of the double streaming, just denser double streaming than what we saw in the first. This one doesn't have that at all.
Yeah, patterns change a little bit throughout the choruses just to keep it a little bit fresh.
And after that, you get another little bit of a break here, more reprieve after the density just hits you. So, like you said, the breaks are going to make it a little less stamina focused, but the sheer length, I think, is going to push it more into like an accuracy consistency type pick, which we haven't really seen too much of in the right side of the pool so far this tournament. This might be the first time we've had like a rice pick go this long that's purely focused on making sure that your accuracy and reading are well within their capabilities throughout.
Yeah, and here we go, the last chorus. Once again, super high density. Do have to watch out for the bursts that come once in a while, like we said. Just super big bracket burst. There we go.
Yeah, that same bracket burst happens at the end of all three of those choruses, where it's swapped between doing like a two-hand trill into brackets and back and forth through the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's going to be Rice 2. We've got another more straightforward pick. This is going to be Rice 3. Flying Steps is We Are Electric, a map by XNeco. And Rice 3, as it has been, is our chord jack pick. This one was an interesting one for me to play through because it felt not terrible to play through for the first like quarter of it. Like the first set of patterns here are actually very comfortable in general, but they do not stay comfortable for very long.
Yeah, this map, we are gonna get a 10 BPM increase, so quite a bit of an increase in the chord jack, at least compared to what we got last week. But the patterns in general are a little bit more straightforward. We do see there are definitely some longer jacks in here, and it doesn't really have as many breaks, so you kind of need to keep up the stamina here.
Yeah, I think there's like one very short break in this right here, and then it just kind of goes back into the same thing that we saw before, where it starts off with some more comfortable patterns and then transitions into much harder patterns. But still, I think the biggest thing that is going to be tough for the players to adjust to in this case is that this is 10 BPM higher, and the density doesn't really get any lower at all to compensate for the increased BPM. And 130, I think, it starts to be around when players kind of, in 4 key, I call it hitting a limit with chord jacks. I don't know if that's exactly mirrored here in 7 key, but it definitely does start to get pretty close there once you hit like the 130, 140 BPM range.
Yeah, definitely here it starts to get really difficult. We do see there are some long jacks in here as well, some triples especially. They're kind of hidden in throughout the entire map, so watch out for those. And there we go.
Also, OD9, higher OD for the jacks. Expected, because we've been seeing such incredible accuracies on jacks, but still important to note.
Yeah. Next up here, we have Rice 4. This is 6 acid strings by the Flashbulb. This is a big Max's map. And this is gonna be our Rice tag for the round. It is quite a bit longer. It's 3 minutes. So, but it's gonna be a bit more of a streamy tag map. So you're gonna see it's gonna have the stream going on throughout most of it, and then it's gonna have a bunch of tricky bursts and jacks filled in. But it definitely is like one of the lower, physicality heavy map throughout in these pools.
Yeah, I think really important to note is that it's just kind of constant throughout this map. Like, you don't usually hear constant as a way to describe a tech map, but this one doesn't really give you any, like, time to think. Even when you do get those small breaks, it just goes right back into it where you gotta kind of make sure you're still on the ball with it. But even then, the main difficulty of this is just going to be kind of like a mixture of stamina and keeping accuracy when those more technical patterns come around. I do need to note, this is the lowest star rating in the pool, including all of the long notes and all of the hybrids, which is crazy, but on the same token, it is when I mentioned at the beginning of the showcase, it's that I got 1 A rank on this pool. This is what I got it on. So I think physically, most players should be mostly capable of handling it. It is really going to be a matter of keep your consistency, don't choke. Misses are going to be brutal on a map like this.
Yeah, I think this is really gonna be like almost consistency tag for like at least the higher level teams. They're gonna really try in the matches here to get the highest accuracy they can. And here we do have a little. This is the more calm section of the map here. We get a little break-ish. It doesn't actually completely stop here, but this is definitely the easier part of the map.
Yeah, get a little bit of time to handle it, a little bit of a break. Constant does start to come up again very soon, but not too bad overall. It's just going to be those bursts that really hit you off. Some not to mention those mini jacks aren't really the easiest, especially interweaving them in the middle of everything else that's kind of constantly going on throughout.
Here we go, the final chorus here going on, and we're not really gonna see too much of a break here. As we said, it's gonna be a little more tricky here. You do have these fast jacks in here. Some super fast burst there. But yeah, not too much else to say about the tech map this week. Just watch out, don't miss.
Watch out, don't miss, don't choke.
Yep.
Just hit the notes. It's easy. But that is going to be Rice 4 tech map out of the way. We've got one more kind of technical pick. This one labeled as a mixed Rice pick, and it certainly is. Has a few pretty heavily technical patterns in it, though. I think the most important, well, okay, I'll introduce the map first. This is going to be Silas. Hey, babe, this was an OSA original from the 4-Key World Cup last year. Was in round of 32. I saw this and I was like, how are you going to make this a semifinals Rice pick? And boy, do they. Very heavily Jack focused, ODA 8, HP 8, but you'll notice throughout this that the beginning, or like the first third of this is basically like some rhythmic changes with a high propensity for mixing jacks into the streams, basically, is what it's going to be. And then the ending has something. The ending is so funny in this.
Yeah, we're not gonna spoil the ending, I don't think. You'll have to see it when we get there.
I won't tell you what it is, but it gets very interesting. Certainly difficulty spikes a little bit at the end.
Well, it depends on how comfortable you are with the pattern.
I guess that's true, but the ending has 2 different sections. We'll talk about everything else first, but we get into more of that jack focus. Gets actually kind of dumpy here. We've kind of been seeing some dump patterns throughout the map, but this one really pushes that envelope with mixing in those bursty dump patterns with just straight chord jacks.
Yeah, we do. That's the difficulties as mixed. We do have a little bit of speed and then some jacks and everything in there.
Yeah, luckily you get a little bit of a break before we go into the ending where things start getting a little bit more interesting. And, I mean, we had this in 4Key MWC, so I think a lot of viewers are going to recognize the song and know that it speeds up here at the end. So going to get a little bit of a BPM boost. And this is not the funny part yet.
Do you have a fast jack, sir?
This part was the first one that really made me kind of laugh at it a little bit, because these streams are just so fast and brutal, mixed with those mini jacks, but it gets even more interesting as it transitions into just full bracket chord stream.
Yeah, we do have full bracket code stream at the end of this one. I think some teams are really gonna like these if they're really used to BMS maps and just like all the brackets they have in there.
Yeah,
If you,
that ending is just very silly. Not to mention it's full bracket chord stream with just jacks in the middle of it. Like it's not just straight chord stream. You have to focus on some of those mini jack patterns that are in there.
yeah, and that is it for our Rice 5. Moving on to our Rice 6 map here. We have Lime, Pixel Planet, and Ozu Original from Ozu World Cup 2023. This is our fast code stream pick. We do see a pretty large increase in speed here, 30 BPM. As I mentioned earlier, this this fast code stream is gonna focus on really fast, lower density code stream. So that's just gonna keep going.
Yeah. And on top of that, it is shorter than the full density core stream pick Rice 2. So that one was about just over 3 minutes. This one just under 2 minutes. So the stamina is not going to be quite as impactful, though. 222 is quite the speed to be at already for semifinals. I'm not used to seeing speeds like this until like finals or like even grand finals in some cases if the density were to start being picked up. But definitely pushing the envelope for speed for these players, and I'm excited to see how this category starts to kind of shift up in difficulty through the tournament. Because I can only imagine how fast something like grand finals is going to get.
Yeah, exciting to see what it'll be for the grand final. But for now, we have just these super fast flowing chord streams here.
Yeah, really comfortable to play. Fast and difficult to handle, but if you can get through the speed and read through it, these patterns are super fun to hit. And like a lot of it you'll kind of notice is either like single streams with like 3-note chords and 2-note chords on every beat, or it's going to be full double streaming. And I think that's kind of what you expect. That's what we've been seeing from this Rice 6 category since it was introduced.
Yeah, you're gonna see these like double streams for the most part. Not really much more density than that. I'm not gonna try and put it above that. But that is it. Very short map.
Very, very short. But that's going to do it for our Rice pool. We'll move into our lawn notes, starting off with our inverse pick. And this is going to be Elliott Sue, a guiding star, a map by Ruka. BPM mostly 176 for the most part, and last time we saw mostly 1/2. We're starting to get closer and closer to just having full-on streams for extended periods of times on full inverse, and this is kind of pushing the envelope yet again for that kind of inverse pattern.
Yeah, we do see it has like 2 different sections. It has the verses, which are more coordination focused there, and then once it gets into the choruses, we see the full-on streams. But definitely a step up in density in general.
Yeah, what I think the important part in that case is that like these verses mostly have the coordination. I think this is maybe on par for what people would be comfortable with in quarterfinals. A little bit denser, certainly need to read through it a little bit more, but this is where the difficulty really starts to hit. That inverse streaming is so fast, 176 BPM. That is the same BPM, very close to the BPM we had for our dense chord stream pick last. Obviously lighter in patterning, but still having to full inverse this speed of streaming is ridiculous.
Yeah, I think players are actually gonna like this a lot because it is just it's a little bit more comfortable for not as much. It's way faster, so you don't have to hold on to them for as long.
Yeah, that's going to be kind of the interesting thing with this inverse category is that as the tournament goes forward and that speed starts to increase, the inverse kind of fades away from. So like early on, it was like the full coordination pick because it was slow and you had to deal with that aspect of the game. Then you introduce the coordination category for LN4 as the speed of the inverse starts to pick up, and the further we get into the tournament, the closer something like LN1 is going to be to a density pick, and I think that's going to be very interesting to see how it impacts the rest of like picking strategies and the map pool itself.
Yeah. we'll have to see as we go on, of course. But for this round, we do have this little ending here. We do have a pretty intense ending. So players should... maybe some stuff can happen here for the matches. Hopefully not. No jokes at the end.
Yeah, those gaps are a little bigger than I would like to have to read through for the inverse pick.
And that was our long note 1. Moving on to our long note density here, we have The Core by Ciatris and Half. This is a collab between Muses and U1D. This is our long note density map. It is an 8 BPM increase from last round. You know, OD pretty low, OD 6.5. So excited to see how this goes. We're gonna see quite a few of these extended long notes. We see some already.
Yeah, I think the thing that I noticed first when I started playing through this is that it's not just chord streaming with extended long notes. There are bursts all over the place. Yeah. And that's going to throw an extra layer of just difficulty with both accuracy and holding combo, because the shifting rhythms are going to make it a lot harder to handle when they do show up.
Definitely quite a few bursts in this map, but the general difficulty is definitely going to be, you know, less tricky than the other long note picks.
Oh yeah, 100%, of course it is, but you know, it just adds an extra layer of difficulty that I think maybe actually, it kind of was in the previous round as well. You saw the same kind of sweepy patterns like we're seeing here in the LN2 from quarterfinals, especially in that chorus where it was just kind of going back and forth between those like LN sweeps into just full extended LN chord stream type patterns.
Yeah. As we get into the second half, it's gonna be a little bit more consistent once we start getting into the stream. We've seen a little bit of a break here and there in between the section. Once it starts, we're really gonna see it be a little more consistent.
Yeah, your classic LN density structure. This is kind of how all of them have been. You get a little bit of an introduction, then your verse that has some very dense parts, and then an ending chorus that just turns it up to 11.
Yeah. We see it here. Just super dense here. And there is gonna be not really much of a break, it's just gonna keep going.
Yeah, and you can see those slight, small bursts of inverse there on some of those. Not too much faster than our inverse category pick, which was at that 176 BPM. So people who are comfortable with that around this BPM with the long note speed could, I think, see some good success with both this and the LN1, though. LN1 obviously still has those coordination sections that might be a little bit difficult for players who, you know, feel better with density than they do on the full-on like figure independence type of patterns that come around with coordination requirements.
Yep. And that is going to be it for our long note density pick. Well, we have our long note 3 moving on here. This is Tetratone Altissimo by Trinette Lydia. This is another U1D map. This one is very tricky, I feel like. It has some pretty tricky patterns in here. But you're gonna see a little bit of everything, and it's also pretty consistent with its difficulty throughout.
Yeah, this intro not too bad. I felt pretty comfortable with most of the patterns that were going on in this intro, but it very much mirrors kind of what we see from these types of maps, at least so far in this tournament, where it will just go in and out of both density and coordination patterns where, you know, you see that high density, some bursts, get the mixed LNs all in there, but you can't be too comfortable holding on to this like it's density without dealing with some of those coordination patterns just thrown out. Extended long notes that last longer than you think they are going to poke their heads out, and those bursts just brutal.
Yeah, this map is pretty brutal overall. But it will include a bit of everything. We'll see the density, the coordination, as well as a tiny bit of inverse once in a while, as some release even. Some of those bursts. We do get a little bit break here before we really start getting back into it.
Yeah, got the transition. Oh, I forgot about that pattern. A little bit of a nasty burst pattern there. Same thing, kind of we've been seeing transitions into a very heavy density section. Kind of that same motif of like this is very density focused, but a few of those long notes maybe extended a little longer than you'd like to. You have to still deal with that.
Yeah. We do get into the end here. We see a little bit of a repeat of an earlier section, almost.
And a little bit of a rehash of that intro. Gets a little bit simpler here, but not like the rest of the chart didn't have so much just to challenge you on anyways. But final patterns. It's gonna finish off our LN3, our mixed LN pick. And we've got one more long note pick remaining. This is going to be our coordination long note pick. Ayuban featuring Kodako Gekkochu. And for the detriment of some, for the joy of others, much shorter than last week's coordination pick. Only 2 minutes here. Another map by X Neko, but these patterns already look brutal. These release points are just disgusting.
You're gonna see so many shields in this map. The density is really picking up here. We saw it last week, it was 4.5, and now we're at 6.8, so...
Yeah! A little bit difficult. You mentioned the shields. I noticed some of the patterns throughout that it's almost like there's just pure Jack type patterns throughout this. Where this is like a Jack map with long notes. You see that kind of category come up a lot with the 4Key World Cup, particularly with long notes. So this kind of has that same feel to it. You can see just shields pretty much everywhere here. There's never not a shield somewhere.
Yeah, you gotta see them everywhere. They're gonna be like especially tricky to coordinate while you are holding on to these super long notes that follow these vocals there. Here we go. Oh, you see
again, really nasty gaps between these nodes. There's some... The releases are never like staggered in a way that they're like off beat, but they're staggered so slightly between each other's notes that it almost feels... I can't even really tell what's going on, not to mention having to balance these awkward release timings with those shields that are just all over the place.
Yeah, here we go, into the ending section here. A little bit of rehash of the earlier section. A little bit more simple, but still very difficult. And this continues all the way to the end.
Yeah, kind of continues the path, the like separation almost between LN1 and LN4, where LN1 is moving towards the density side, and this one is going full coordination, not physical at all. Just deal with the coordination required and the finger independence.
But now we're done with long notes, and it means it's time for hybrids. And we have a little thing, something special here for a hybrid one. Take a look. And there we go. That was our second original hybrid one here. This is Foxglove by Cyrus. And we have some special thanks to give out. We got an illustration by Jack024. We got graphic design by Arabian. And video design coordinator Sakura006. This is a map by Critical Star. Very excited to see what people think about it, and it has a full spread. So if you want to play it, you can play it at any difficulty level as soon as it gets uploaded here later.
That's a really cool song. That background's also really nice. I think that they did a really great job with this one, and that looked brutal. So I'm really excited to see teams play that, because you saw a lot of really interesting patterns. It looked mostly like separated between long note and rice skills, but they were like short bursts of each. So I'm really excited to see like how teams kind of approach this kind of pick.
Yeah. Also to mention, the star rating is 7.27 on the client.
When you see it, but. Yeah. Anyways, that's Hybrid 1, our second OC original, like you mentioned, for the 7Q World Cup. We'll move on to our second hybrid, Linear Ring Enchanted Love, a map by Kobe. And this is going to be our more technical hybrid. And when you hear technical hybrid, that usually means that you're going to have to deal with some shields.
Yeah, and we are going to see quite a few just like tricky patterns. It's not going to be too consistent overall. So you're gonna see it like be very stop and go with.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Just a funny note. I'm sure a lot of players who are in this World Cup will remember the bank suck chart of this. That was also used as a hybrid a couple years ago. But this one, way different in structure. A lot more heavy on the long nodes, and the bursts way less friendly in general.
Yeah, see these bursts there, super rude. Almost.
Oh, that inverse sweep pattern is so much. That's a lot to get through.
Yeah. This one is very tricky, and then it has shields all over here. Not gonna have any chill. Get it back into it. We have more of these big sweeps. Especially watching out for these shields.
I'm having so much trouble just articulating this because it's so much. This is a very busy chart. I don't even know how to approach something like this.
You see the big sweeps coming back, yeah. And for the ending, we got a little bit of a calm section. Not too difficult.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I remember, for some reason, I remember the song being longer than maybe it's a shortened version or something. But for some reason, it always feels like this shouldn't be the end of it. But given how difficult that entire middle section is, it's a good thing it ends here. I think.
Yeah. But we do up next have our hybrid 3. This is our mini tiebreaker, and this one is gonna be long. It's gonna be 4 minutes and 5 seconds. This is Phosphor by Mitai, another map by U1D. We're gonna start out a little bit of a calm build-up section here before we really get into it.
Yeah, and calm build-up section doesn't really mean anything. I've seen players struggling with some of the more simple patterns, especially when you have some of these like difficult sweeps that you need to have a little bit of coordination. Like, it's obviously easier than the rest, but if you're not like fully aware of what's going on, I think misses are still just going to happen all over the place.
Yeah, and here we go, getting into the first section here. We are gonna see a little bit of tech section coming up here after this build up.
Very interesting. This map, super long. Like I mentioned, the break isn't free. It's easier, but it's not free. But that is a 4-minute chart where the first entire minute is build up. And then you start getting into the real meat and potatoes of this chart.
Yep, here we go. You see these super tricky bursts, both for long notes and rice.
The shades of Enchanted Love with that sweepy long note pattern there.
Yeah. This is probably a little bit of the more tech section here. It does come back here for the first half of the whole next section, but then we start getting into a bit more density focus, just it being more dense after this part here.
Continuing the motif of those LN sweep patterns, I still don't know how you
here we go. We got these little jack sections here.
Yeah, jack's at, keep in mind, 107 BPM, which is not particularly fast, but needing to deal with those jacks with long notes attached to them, it basically makes it feel like you're playing 130 BPM chord jacks. It really does just boost that physicality requirement. Having to hold down those notes is just so difficult.
Yeah. We do get another break here. This map does have plenty of breaks, but at least that are actually way easier, so you can actually take a breather. Now that it's 4 minutes long. Getting back into this build-up here.
So the first minute was build-up. You get a nice 20 to 30 second build-up here before we get into the final third. But still, need to keep paying attention. It's not free, as I mentioned.
Yeah,
and full LN density.
We do get full LN density, but you'll notice that some of the long notes are really short at those BPM, and they'll mostly act as rice notes even, just with a little bit of the release to them.
It just kind of continues along this way for quite a bit of time. And that's kind of also been a theme with these mini tiebreakers, is that the ending section has been basically LN density for every round, which is so interesting to see. We transition out of that, get another technical section here, the LN sweep return.
Yeah, so the grace note here for the rice note here.
And a little bit more of a taste of that long note. Kind of jacky structure, but that's going to finish out our Hybrid 3, our mini tiebreaker, and our last regular pick before tiebreaker.
Yeah.
This outro is so much longer than I thought it was.
Yeah, and we do see that was the end of these regular picks, and now next up we have the tiebreaker, and we got something a little special once again. But before we get into it, I do want to give a little bit of an epilepsy warning. There is a short moment in there, so let's get into it. And that was our semifinals tiebreaker. It was Ruin and Cascade by Kanamiko. Super cool song. Uh, Very excited to see how players will do this. But let's get into some special thanks. We got some illustrations here by Shiarani and Red CXCA, and as well as some graphics design here by Alex Stump, and of course a storyboard here by Nafi, as well as a video by Yuka and Venerable Nyata, as well as Sakura006, and of course, last but not least, thanks to design coordination by Sakura006 and all the mappers of this map. Critical Star, Big Max's ex Neku, and Stan, Paul Kappa, and Taba 2. Huge collab here, just under the emerald of the team.
That tiebreaker was insane. Shoutouts to Kanamiko. What a song and what a chart. What a result. Came out really well. Both Osphere originals this week came out amazing, and that tiebreaker looks absolutely brutal. How long is this? 5.5? That felt so much longer than 5 minutes.
Yeah,
But
it is all way at like 8.76 hours, so also very difficult map.
yeah, very difficult. It's going to be interesting. I mean, the real as someone who was a player at one point, I would say try to avoid it because this is going to be a scary map to have to play under pressure. But as a commentator and viewer, please, every single match this week can go to tiebreaker so we can see this. What a map, what a song. I'm excited.
Yeah, we do have some really close matches, I think, next week, so we'll see how that goes. But that is all for our semifinals Mappool Showcase, I think. Of course.
Yeah, that's it for the semifinal showcase. That's it for our quarterfinals weekend. We don't have too much left to say. All I'll say to close this out is this map pool was really cool. Song quality is really nice. Map quality is really nice. I'm excited to see these players duke it out next week against it. But I'm certainly not going to miss it, and I hope you guys don't miss it either. But that's going to be it for the Osimania 7Key World Cup 2025 quarterfinals weekend. Don't miss semifinals next weekend. We'll see you then.